Portimao, Portugal. The shade of lime green splashed along the Algarve International Circuit's paddock isn't what Aston Martin apologists, or average blokes for example, would call beautiful. The hue is really a peculiar combination of highlighter yellow and acid green, a visual shock clearly that will provoke, not unlike the sharply creased silhouette with a new V8 Vantage signifying Aston's second salvo at modern reinvention. For a corporation that's only seen couple of years of profitability in their 105-year history, some time is nigh for your seasoned mark to identify a new voice. Though the DB11, introduced in 2016, was kissed, which has a touch of the latest design language such as aerodynamic curlicues and also a subtly pointed tail, what's more, it kept a foot planted inside the Grand Touring vernacular meant to satisfy the Tweety yesteryear set. So far the efforts have repaid for Aston, while using DB11 fueling a meteoric turnaround in revenue not too long ago. But now is often a critical time for it to expand the repertoire and engage a younger, more daring demographic. Now is any time for the V8 Vantage. Playing the role from the DB11's mischievous little brother who may just have been sired through the Randy Milkman, the V8 Vantage has gone out to crash the Porsche Bentley Mercedes Sam Rager and hopefully not end up from the corner wearing a lampshade hat. It's an automobile Aston aims squarely with the mighty Porsche 911, one from the most enduring, incalculably honed sports vehicle stalwarts in automotive history. No big issue, right? Externally, the Vantage's form is guided by function, not pretense. There are no lavish overhangs or gratuitous French curves. Rather, sheet metal may seem to hug, stretch, and bulge over its underpinnings and wheel edges with purposefulness. Think Frank Gehry, not Frank Lloyd Wright. Up front, Aston's traditional hill climb aperture continues to be traded for any more minimal maw. Shock, horror, it doesn't produce an Aston Martin grille, taunts head designer Marek Reichman. Why would we put 15 or 20 kilos of weight around the furthest point forward in a sports vehicle? The mouth is approximately servicing and breathing the engine, and cooling the brakes. Fair enough. There are other points of aesthetic contention too, particularly the tiny LED headlamps dotting the sloping nose, which, for the purpose it's worth, wouldn't look out of place with a vehicle that lives in the Far East. This is concerning function, Reichman insists. It's got incredibly small lights because there's a tremendously small package space. The dynamic turning envelope from the 20-inch wheel and tire leaves you with hardly any space. Moving along to your middle section, extractors, provocatively accented inside a contrasting color and texture, draw high-pressure airflow outside the wheel wells and engine compartment. At the rear, a huge diffuser creates 169 pounds of downforce in the claimed Vmax of 195 miles per hour. Why not an excellent round double century? Everybody would want a 200 miles per hour car, says Aston Senior Vehicle Engineering Manager Craig Jamieson, but this can be a sports car having a short final drive, not just a supercar. The rear axle ratio of 2.93, versus the DB11's statelier 2.7, works with all the same ZF source 8-speed automatic transmission to dispatch a 0 to 60 miles per hour use of 3.5 seconds. Not bad, Aston. So good. Though the Vantage shares suspension architecture such as front double wishbone or multi-link setup while using DB11, the newest car is tuned having a considerably more aggressive setup. Similarly, the Mercedes-AMG-sourced 4.0-liter twin-turbo V8 produces exactly the same 503 horsepower output since the DB11 V8, though its intake, exhaust, and mapping yields a punchier 505 lb-ft of torque versus 498 delivered using a sharper ramp-up, plateauing between 2,000 and 5,000 revolutions per minute. Its extruded aluminum chassis, also based on the DB11, claims 70% new parts. The rain is steady but slow at Portimao's Algarve International Circuit, and it also is finally time for you to slide in the driver's seat and watch the gorgeous beads of moisture throughout the Vantage's lime essence paint. The cabin, for a people all watchy steeped in Aston Martin convention, departs from protocol with the use of a decidedly less precious, more masculine design. Rather than a waterfall dashboard delicately adorned in veneer, the very center stack features an unapologetic selection of a fixed 8-inch LCD screen, that controls, as well as a cluster of buttons. The individual PR&D transmission buttons are now within a chevron, not much of a row. A small, stitched leather patch occupies a region where a future manual transmission will reside, much to your presumable delight of Luddite diehards. The first laps inside wet are run with all the drivetrain and sport the lowest amount of aggressive throttle exhaust setting, and stability control in default mode. Discretion being the higher part of valor, the conservative configuration presently provides more intervention PC's worth, using the torquey engine easily revealing the rear tires loose and also the stability control violently yanking rid of it. Trying Sport Plus and Track mode in the next session yields a considerably smoother, more intuitive dynamic. Moderation continues to be order with the day, especially with decent levels of water accumulating within this 2.9 miles of rising and falling tarmac. But the Vantage now plays a great deal more nicely using the itchy right foot, allowing decent quantities of yaw angle before it overloads on sliding, and also the car's axis is tugged back on track. The watery conditions are unfortunate on any track, but particularly so using the Vantage because its tuning seems dedicated to handling, using a strong sine order of torque. Regardless, my kinesthetic feedback loop corroborates the Aston's measured 5,050 weight distribution, barring dumb moves like excessive turn-in during relatively slow corners already been through it, plowed that, the Vantage turns in easily and tracks responsively mid-corner, conveying feeling of willingness to rotate when provided appropriately thoughtful inputs. Part of this emanates from the relatively low polar moment of inertia thanks on the engine being shoved resistant to the firewall. Lift the bonnet, plus it seems there might be enough space to deal with a keg in it, if not to the big ol' airboxes. Speaking of airboxes, the optional quad exhaust system sampled in the track extracts some pleasingly sonorous sounds through the V8. The tuning here is usually a tad raspier and devoted to mid-frequency notes than inside the AMG application, that is bit more guttural and, well, German-sounding. The turbocharged setup differs greatly though on the naturally aspirated song in the old Vantage's 4.7-liter V8, which came alive with the incomparable degree of musicality second only, obviously, for the now defunct naturally aspirated V12. Regardless, the brand new Mills optional pipes make solid use on the venerable V8 configuration, offering a pleasantly raw edge that complements the Vantage's aggressive visual style. The 8-speed auto performs consistently well with all the powerful engine, delivering appropriately aggressive shifts and downshifts when summoned through large, stationary polished aluminum paddles. Track composure can also be aided by Aston's first using an electronic differential, that may apply as much as 2,500 Nm 1,843 lb-ft of clamping force to help you stabilize the auto. The feature is often a welcome addition when approaching the conclusion of Portimao's lengthy straight, where I repeatedly saw an indicated 150 mph before slamming the carbon ceramic stoppers, whisking away speed just in time with the hard right-hander. Though there's still some lightness plus a bit of tail wiggle when summoning these immense slowdowns, The proceedings still feel commendably responsible for all considering the quantities of deceleration plus the slick surfaces beneath. Stopping power sometimes perceived to wane when scrubbing off nearly 100 miles per hour of speed, just to be salvaged as to what felt being a brake booster effect that sank the pedal deeper into its travel. Only slight fade was perceptible after several hard laps about the circuit. You is only able to glean a whole lot subjective data on a vehicle's track capabilities when you're stuck inside the wet, but thankfully Aston arranged an additional day of street driving which shed more light within the Vantage's terrestrial qualities. On the pastoral broads on the surrounding region, the Vantage feels remarkably modern-day and extreme laptop or computer does around the circuit's concrete superstructures. The seats are appropriately supportive and sporty, positioned of a quarter-inch lower which means you sit nearer to earth, amplifying the sense of speed. With relatively high dorsals, you are feeling you're within, and not on, the automobile's interior, further differentiating the Vantage looking at the more grand touring-focused stablemate. The automatic transmission earns praise for smoothness when lolling about public roads. Shifts is usually appropriately imperceptible when you're not driving in anger, plus the variability feels particularly impressive as compared to its crisp behavior for the track. A day spent meandering through backroads conveys a general impression biased toward purposefulness, not plushness. The three-mode Bilstein dampers present you with a noticeably more forgiving ride into their softer settings. So where does the V8 Vantage fit inside the galaxy of outstandingly capable competitors? Well, at least from the context of its Porsche 911 archenemy, it's all too easy to argue that as you move the rear-engine German delivers on its tried-and-true mission of finely tuned driving dynamics, the Brit brings a novel sense of style for the table. Yes, the car's Evenkiel teutonicness tickles our fancy, but there's several fun to be had inside the Aston's fanciful details like leather brogue edging and tailored suit stitching. And while we'll demand a head-to-head battle on dry pavement to feed final judgment around the finer points with their driving dynamics, impressions from 2 days of wet weather slinging suggest the Aston team is doing a mighty fine job of imbuing the Vantage using a sense of athleticism and personality. If the Grand Touring-oriented DB11 was the company's initial attempt for redefinition, the V8 Vantage can serve as one hell of your launch for Aston Martin's driver-focused second act. There are still miles to search before Team Aston can sleep, which has a steady cadence of upcoming models promising a full-circle rebuilding from the mark. But when Raikkonen leans in and not so subtly hints at future product by asking, "What might you think of this car with 80 more horsepower and 150 fewer pounds?" These enterprising British underdogs have a very way of making the skies ahead seem especially blue. 2019 Aston Martin V8 Vantage specifications. Summer 2018. Price: $152,820 base estate. Engine: 4.0 liters twin-turbo 32-valve V8 503 HP at 6,000 revolutions per minute, 505 lb-ft at 2,0005,000 revolutions per minute. Transmission: 8-speed automatic. Layout: 2-door, 2-passenger, front engine, RWD coupe. EPA mileage: 1822 City Estate, LXWXH. 175.8 by 84.8 by 50.1 out of. Wheelbase: 106.5 inches, weight: 3,373 pounds. Estate: 060 miles per hour, 3.5 seconds, top speed: 195 miles per hour.